The massive space station called Harmony Peak floated in neutral space, far from any star system that belonged to a single species. It was built hundreds of years ago as a meeting place for the Galactic Council, where all the different alien races could gather without fear or favor. The station was enormous, almost like a small moon, with docking bays that could hold thousands of ships. Today, those bays were filling up quickly as delegates from across the galaxy arrived for the annual summit. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the horizon's edge, watching the station grow larger on the main view screen. He was a tall man with short brown hair and calm blue eyes that seemed to always be thinking about something deeper than what he was saying. Next to him stood Linda Carter, his navigation officer, a woman in her early 30s with dark hair pulled back in a tight bun. She was checking the approach vectors for the third time, making sure everything was perfect. "We're cleared for docking bay 17, Linda said, her fingers moving quickly across her control panel. "They've assigned us a spot near the main council chamber. Looks like they want to make it easy for us to attend the meetings." Jake nodded slowly. "They're being polite. That's good. We've worked hard to make them see us as friendly." From the engineering station, Ryan Phillips looked up. He was a shorter man with red hair and freckles, someone who looked more like a university student than a chief engineer. "All systems running smooth, Captain. Power signatures are exactly where they should be for a diplomatic vessel. Nothing unusual showing on any scans." "Good," Jake said. "Keep it that way." The horizon's edge glided into the docking bay with gentle precision. Through the windows, the crew could see other ships from dozens of species. There were the elegant silver vessels of the Velkari Empire, looking like pieces of art that happened to fly through space. The bulky transport ships of the Thorian Collective sat nearby, covered in trading symbols and commercial markings. Further down the bay, the dark angular warships of the Zynthian Dominion rested like sleeping predators. As the docking clamps locked into place, Jake turned to his crew. "Remember what we're here for: smiles, handshakes, friendly conversation. We're the nice neighbors who just want to get along with everyone." Linda smiled slightly. "We've been playing this role for 15 years now. I think we've got it down." 15 years, Ryan repeated quietly. "Sometimes I wonder if they'll ever see what we really are." Jake's expression didn't change. "They will, when it's time. But not today." The crew made their way through the station's corridors toward the main council chamber. The halls were filled with aliens of every shape and size. Some walked on 2 legs like humans, others on 4 or 6 or 8. Some floated through the air using technology that humanity was still trying to understand. A few were so different that Jake couldn't tell which end was the front. But despite their differences, Jake noticed something they all had in common. When they looked at humans, their expressions showed politeness mixed with something else. Dismissal maybe, or pity. They saw humans as the newcomers, the young species that had only discovered faster-than-light travel a few decades ago. Cute, perhaps. Harmless, definitely. The council chamber was a massive circular room with seating arranged in rising tiers. Each species had their own section, marked with their symbols and flags. The human section was small, just a few seats near the back. Jake took his place there with Linda and Ryan sitting behind him. Across the chamber, he could see the important species taking their positions in the larger, more prominent sections near the center. Ambassador Helen Price arrived a few minutes later. She was an older woman with gray hair and sharp green eyes that missed nothing. She had been Earth's primary representative to the Galactic Council since humanity first joined, and she was very good at her job. She smiled warmly at the other delegates as she moved to her seat, stopping to exchange pleasant words with several of them. The council session began with the usual formalities. The speaker, a tall Velkari named Varthun with purple skin and forearms, called the meeting to order. His voice was deep and resonant, filling the chamber easily. "We gather once again in the spirit of cooperation and mutual prosperity. Let us begin with reports from our member species." One by one, the different species gave their updates. The Thorian Collective talked about new trade routes. The Zynthian Dominion reported on their expanding borders, mentioning several systems they had claimed recently. Nobody objected, even though everyone knew those systems had been home to smaller, weaker species that couldn't defend themselves. When it was humanity's turn, Helen stood gracefully and moved to the speaking platform at the center of the chamber. "Honored delegates," she began, her voice warm and friendly. "Humanity is pleased to report another year of peaceful growth and cooperation. We have opened 3 new cultural exchange programs with the Thorian Collective, allowing our peoples to learn from each other. Our scientists have been working with Velkari researchers on medical advances that we hope will benefit everyone. She continued, talking about trade agreements and diplomatic missions, education programs and artistic collaborations. She spoke about humanity's commitment to peace and understanding. She thanked the Council for accepting Earth as a member and expressed hope for many more years of friendship. The other delegates listened politely. Some even seemed genuinely pleased, but Jake, watching from his seat, could see the subtle signs. The Velkari Admiral Kestral was barely paying attention. The Xinthian representatives were exchanging quiet comments and small laughs. To them, humanity was performing exactly as expected. The weak species trying to win favor through niceness. When Helen returned to her seat, she caught Jake's eye for just a moment. Her expression didn't change, but he saw the slight tension around her eyes. She saw it too. The disrespect, the dismissal. The session continued for several more hours, covering various matters of galactic importance. There were disputes over mining rights, debates about trade regulations, and discussions about dealing with pirate raids in the frontier regions. The Krell raiders were mentioned several times. They were a dangerous group that attacked colonies and trading ships, killing and stealing without mercy. The Krell are becoming bolder, said a delegate from one of the smaller species. They attacked 3 of our settlements last month. We request assistance from the Council. Speaker Varthun nodded sympathetically. We will form a committee to investigate the matter and determine the appropriate response. These things take time and careful consideration. Jake kept his expression neutral, but inside he felt disgust. The Council always responded the same way. Committees, investigations, careful consideration. By the time they decided to do anything, the raiders would have moved on to new victims. The Council maintained order among its powerful members, but it did very little to protect the weak. As the session finally ended and delegates began to file out, Ryan leaned forward to whisper to Jake. Same as always. Lots of talk, not much action. That's why they underestimate us, Jake replied quietly. They think talking is all that matters. Linda nodded slightly. They don't understand that sometimes you need to do more than talk. The 3 of them made their way back to the horizon's edge, exchanging pleasantries with other delegates as they went. Jake shook hands with a Thorian trader and promised to look into some business opportunity. Linda chatted briefly with a Velkari officer about navigation techniques. Ryan discussed engine designs with an engineer from another species. They played their roles perfectly. Friendly, open, harmless. Back on the ship, Jake went to his ready room and sealed the door. He sat at his desk and activated his private communication system, entering a series of security codes that took almost a minute to complete. Finally, the screen lit up with a message marked, Priority 1, Earth Command. He read it quickly, his expression never changing. When he finished, he sat back in his chair and closed his eyes for a moment. There was a soft chime at his door. Come in, he said. Helen entered, followed by Linda and Ryan. They all wore the same calm expressions, but their eyes were sharp and alert. You got it too? Helen asked. Jake nodded. About 30 minutes ago. Distress call from New Haven Colony. The message was cut off, but the last words were clear enough. They're under attack. The Krell? Ryan asked. Most likely. The colony is in the frontier region, exactly where the Krell have been operating lately. Linda moved to the desk and pulled up a star chart on the display screen. New Haven is 3 days from here at standard speed. Population of 40,000, mostly civilians, families, children. Helen's jaw tightened. The Council will want to form a committee. I know, Jake said. He stood up and looked at each of them in turn. But we're not going to wait for a committee. We're not going to wait for investigations or careful considerations. We're done waiting, Ryan said quietly. Jake walked to the window and looked out at the station, at all the ships from all the species that thought humanity was weak. Get me a private meeting with Speaker Varthun and the senior delegates. Tomorrow morning. Tell them we have an urgent matter to discuss. They'll ask what it's about, Helen said. Jake turned back to face them, and for the first time since arriving at the emergency council session was called for early morning station time. Jake Morrison walked through the corridors of Harmony Peak with deliberate calm, but anyone who knew him well would notice the difference in how he moved. There was no casual friendliness now, no warm smile for passing delegates. His face was a mask of cold determination. Behind him, Helen Price moved with the same controlled purpose. Linda Carter and Ryan Phillips followed at a respectful distance, their expressions equally serious. Other delegates who passed them in the hallway felt an unexpected chill, though they couldn't quite explain why. The council chamber was less crowded than usual. Only the senior delegates and military advisors had been called. Speaker Varthun sat in his prominent position, his forearms folded in a gesture that meant curiosity among his people. Admiral Kestrel of the Velkari sat nearby, his expression showing barely concealed irritation at having his schedule interrupted. The Xinthian representatives looked bored. Captain Morrison, Varthun said, his deep voice echoing slightly in the chamber. Ambassador Price, you requested this emergency session. Please explain the matter that requires such urgency. Jake moved to the center speaking platform, but he didn't adopt the friendly posture that humans usually used here. He stood straight and formal, his hands at his sides. At 0400 hours yesterday, the human colony of New Haven stopped all communications. Our monitoring stations detected weapons fire and distress signals before the silence. Varthun nodded slowly. This is unfortunate. Do you have evidence of what occurred? Our long-range scanners detected 32 Krell Raider ships in orbit around New Haven, Jake said flatly. Analysis of the brief signals we received indicates mass casualties among the civilian population. There were murmurs around the chamber. Several delegates exchanged glances. A Thorian representative spoke up. The Krell are a persistent problem in that region. We have brought this matter to the Council many times. And the Council has formed committees, Jake said, his voice taking on an edge. Investigations, reports. While those reports were being written, colonies were being destroyed. Varthun's skin color shifted slightly, a sign of displeasure in his species. Captain Morrison, we understand your distress. However, there are proper procedures for these situations. We must gather evidence, confirm the facts, and decide on appropriate diplomatic responses. How long does that take? Jake asked. These matters are complex. Perhaps 4 to 6 weeks to properly investigate and formulate a response. 6 weeks, Jake repeated. His voice was quiet now, but it cut through the chamber like a blade. New Haven has 40,000 people. Most of them are probably dead already. The ones who aren't dead are being held as hostages or slaves, but you want 6 weeks to investigate. Admiral Kestrel leaned forward. Captain, we all sympathize with your situation, but emotional responses lead to poor decisions. The Council has maintained galactic peace for centuries by following established protocols. Jake turned to look at the Velkari Admiral directly. Peace for whom? Not for the colonies that get raided. Not for the trading ships that get ambushed. Not for the people who die while you're investigating. You speak out of turn, Varthun said, his voice taking on a warning tone. Humanity is a member of this council, but you are still bound by its rules and procedures. No, Jake said simply. The chamber went silent. Several delegates stared at him in shock. No one simply said no to the Speaker of the Galactic Council. Excuse me? Varthun said, his voice dangerous now. I said no, Jake repeated. We're done following your procedures. We're done waiting for committees. We're done asking permission to protect our own people. Helen stepped forward to stand beside Jake. Humanity is formally notifying the Council that we are taking immediate military action to secure the New Haven colony and eliminate the threat posed by the Krell Raiders in that region. The chamber erupted in voices. Delegates were standing, calling out questions and protests. Varthun was on his feet, his forearms gesturing for order. Admiral Kestrel looked stunned, as if someone had slapped him. You cannot simply declare military action, Varthun said loudly, his voice cutting through the noise. The Council must approve any military operations by member species. This is fundamental to our charter. Jake's expression didn't change. We're not asking for approval. We're informing you of what's already happening. The Earth vessel Horizon's Edge is departing for New Haven within the hour. 3 carrier groups from the Earth Defense Fleet are already en route. They'll arrive at New Haven in approximately 70 hours. Admiral Kestrel rose from his seat. 3 carriers? Captain Morrison, I don't think you understand what you're saying. The Krell have 30 ships at New Haven. They're experienced raiders with significant firepower. You're sending your people into a massacre, are we? Jake asked. He turned to look at the Admiral again, and this time there was something cold and predatory in his eyes. Tell me, Admiral, What do you know about the horizon's edge? Kessetral seemed confused by the question. It's your diplomatic vessel, a modified cargo ship equipped for long-range travel and official functions. Nothing special? You've scanned our ship before, Jake said. Multiple times, I'm sure. What did your scans show? Standard systems, Kestrel said slowly. Power plant appropriate for a ship of its size. Conventional engines. Light defensive shields. No significant weapons. Jake smiled, but it wasn't a friendly expression. Ryan, would you care to explain? Ryan Phillips moved forward, pulling up a holographic display from his handheld device. The image of the horizon's edge appeared in the center of the chamber, rotating slowly. The horizon's edge is classified as a diplomatic vessel, which is technically true. However, what the Admiral's scans couldn't detect is that approximately 60% of the ship's internal volume is hidden behind sensor-dampening panels. The holographic image changed, showing the ship's true internal structure. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Where there should have been cargo bays and living quarters, there were weapons, batteries, missile tubes, and what looked like a massive power core. This is impossible, Kessetral said. We've scanned every human ship that's come to this station. None of them showed military capabilities beyond basic self-defense. That's because we built them not to, Ryan said. Every human ship that visits Council space is equipped with sensor countermeasures specifically designed to hide their true nature. We've spent 15 years perfecting the technology. You see what we want you to see. Linda Carter stepped forward next. The 3 carrier groups Captain Morrison mentioned aren't exploration vessels. They're full military carriers. Each one holds 200 attack craft, 50 bomber wings, and enough firepower to level a planet. We have 12 such carrier groups in the Earth Defense Fleet. We also have 68 heavy cruisers, 112 destroyers, and 340 frigates. All of them hidden, all of them ready. The council chamber had gone completely silent. Delegates were staring at the holographic displays in disbelief. The Xinthian representatives, who had looked bored earlier, were now leaning forward with sharp attention. Varthun's skin had shifted to a dark purple, indicating severe distress in his species. This is a violation of council law. All member species must register their military capabilities. You have deliberately deceived us. Helen Price spoke now, her voice calm but firm. We registered exactly what the law required. We provided accurate information about our defensive capabilities. We never lied. We simply didn't volunteer information about capabilities you didn't ask about. Semantics, Varthun said angrily. Law, Helen corrected. You write the rules very carefully, Speaker. We simply read them the same way. Admiral Kessetral was still staring at the holographic displays. Why hide this? If you had shown your strength from the beginning, you would have been respected. Feared, even. Instead, you let everyone think you were weak. Jake turned to face the Admiral directly. Because we learned something during our history, Admiral. We learned it through hard experience and a lot of blood. Do you want to know what we learned? Kessetral nodded slowly. The strong are always targets, Jake said. If we had shown up 15 years ago with our full military capability, what would have happened? Every major power in the galaxy would have seen us as a threat. They would have formed alliances against us, found reasons to limit our expansion, maybe even attacked us before we could grow stronger. Instead, we appeared harmless. We made friends. We learned about galactic politics. We studied your strengths and weaknesses. And while everyone thought we were just friendly explorers, we were building, preparing, waiting. Waiting for what? Varthun asked. For someone to make the mistake of attacking us, Jake said. The Krell just made that mistake. Now the galaxy gets to see what humanity actually is. A delegate from a smaller species, one that had lost colonies to the Krell, raised a tentacle. What happens to the Krell? Jake's expression was cold. We're going to eliminate them. Not defeat them. Not drive them away. Eliminate them. Every ship. Every base. Every raider who participated in the attack on New Haven. We're going to make sure they never threaten anyone again. Admiral Kessetral looked troubled. Captain Morrison, I've fought in many. The journey to New Haven took 3 days, and during that time Admiral Kessetral witnessed a transformation that disturbed him more than he wanted to admit. The friendly, casual humans who had walked the halls of Harmony Peak were gone, replaced by something cold and focused. On the first day, Kessetral watched as the crew ran combat drills. Ryan Phillips coordinated with the engineering teams, running them through emergency protocols for battle damage. The drills were precise, timed to the second. When one team member made a small mistake in the simulation, Ryan didn't yell or punish. He simply had them run it again, and again, and again, until they could do it perfectly even while exhausted. "Your crew seems well trained," Kessetral observed, standing next to Jake on the bridge. "They should be," Jake replied without taking his eyes off the displays. "We've been training for 15 years. Every human ship's crew runs combat drills at least once a week. Our military academies are full. Our shipyards never stop building. We've been preparing for war since the day we joined the council." "But there was no war," Kessetral said. "You've been at peace with everyone." "That's because we were preparing," Jake said. "You don't fight a war you might lose. You prepare until you know you'll win, then you fight." On the second day, Kessetral was given a tour of the ship's true capabilities. Ryan took him through the hidden weapons bays, showing him railguns that could fire projectiles at a significant fraction of light speed. He explained the plasma lance system that could focus enough heat to melt through the heaviest armor. He demonstrated the electronic warfare suite that could hack into most known alien computer systems. "This is far beyond what we thought humanity possessed," Kessetral admitted. "Your technology level is at least 50 years more advanced than your public records indicate." "We've been busy," Ryan said simply. He pulled up a holographic display showing a human combat drone. "This is our latest development. Fully autonomous. It uses artificial intelligence to make tactical decisions in real time. We can deploy thousands of them from each carrier." Kessetral studied the design. "Autonomous combat machines are banned by council law. They're considered too dangerous, too unpredictable." Ryan's expression didn't change. "They're banned for council members to use against each other. The law says nothing about using them against pirates and raiders." "More semantics," Kessetral said. "More careful reading of the law," Ryan corrected. On the third day, as they approached New Haven's system, Kessetral sat in the observation room with the other alien observers. Linda Carter joined them, bringing updates on their approach. The other observers, representing 5 different species, had been quiet for most of the journey. They had all witnessed the drills, seen the weapons, felt the cold determination of the human crew. A Thorian observer named Polvin spoke up. "I have a question, if I may." Linda nodded. "Go ahead. Your people have hidden your strength for 15 years. You've allowed others to think you were weak. Didn't that bother you? Didn't you want respect?" Linda sat down across from them, her expression thoughtful. "Let me tell you about Earth's history. For thousands of years, humans fought each other. Wars over resources, territory, religion, ideology. We got very good at killing each other. By the time we developed nuclear weapons, we had the capability to destroy our entire species. And we almost did. Several times." She paused, looking at each of the observers in turn. "We learned something from those close calls. We learned that the species who survives isn't always the strongest. It's the smartest, the most patient, the one who knows when to fight and when to wait. But waiting means accepting disrespect," Polvin said. "Disrespect from whom?" Linda asked. "From species we've been studying and analyzing for 15 years. We know your military capabilities. We know your economic strengths and weaknesses. We know your political systems and how to manipulate them. While you were looking down on us, we were learning everything about you. Who got the better deal in that exchange?" Kessetral made a sound that might have been a laugh in his species. "You're saying you traded pride for knowledge." "We traded the appearance of weakness for actual strength," Linda corrected. "There's a difference." A soft alert sounded and Linda stood. "We're approaching the system. You'll want to come to the bridge." The group made their way to the bridge where Jake stood at the center, surrounded by displays showing tactical information. The main view screen showed the dark of space, but the sensors painted a different picture. New Haven's planet was there, a blue-green world that looked peaceful from a distance. But the sensors showed the truth. 32 Krell warships in orbit, multiple fires on the planet's surface, wreckage from destroyed orbital stations, and worst of all, no communications from the colony itself. "Give me a full tactical assessment," Jake said quietly. Linda moved to her station, her fingers flying across controls. "Krell fleet composition: 20 corvettes, 8 frigates, 4 cruisers. They're in a standard raiding formation, spread out to cover the planet's major population centers. No sign they've detected us yet. We're still outside their sensor range. Ryan checked his displays. Our 3 carrier groups are holding position as ordered. All systems ready. Drone wings prepared for launch. They're waiting for your command. Jake stood silent for a moment, studying the tactical display. Admiral Kesidral watched him, noting the complete lack of emotion on the human captain's face. It was the expression of someone who had already made all the difficult decisions and was now simply executing a plan. How long until we're in weapons range? Jake asked. At current speed, 18 minutes, Linda replied. And how long will it take the Krell to detect us? They'll probably pick us up in about 12 minutes. Maybe less if they're paying attention. Jake nodded slowly. They'll see one ship approaching. They'll think we're here to negotiate. Maybe pay ransom for the hostages. They'll wait to see what we do. Standard procedure for raiders, Kesidral confirmed. They'll try to extract as much value as possible before they leave. They might even think you're here to surrender more territory. Good, Jake said. Let them think that. Ryan, bring all weapon systems online, but keep them masked. I want full power to weapons, but I want our emissions to still look like a civilian ship. Already done, Ryan said. We'll look harmless until the moment we open fire. Jake touched a control on his chair's armrest. This is Captain Morrison to all ships in the task force. Execute Protocol Hellfire on my mark. Rules of engagement are weapons free. No survivors, no mercy. Show them what humanity is. Kesidral felt a chill run through him. No survivors? Captain, that's genocide. The Council will never accept that. Jake turned to look at him. The Krell attacked a civilian colony. They killed thousands of people who couldn't fight back. They executed families, children. They deserve no mercy, and they'll receive none. But the law, one of the other observers started to say. The law says I can defend my people. Jake interrupted. The law says I can eliminate threats to human colonies. The Krell are a threat. After today, they won't be. The Horizon's Edge continued its approach. On the view screen, the Krell ships were starting to move. They had detected the approaching vessel. Linda monitored their communications, translating the harsh Krell language. They're hailing us, she said. They want to know our intentions. They're warning us not to interfere with their operations. Ignore them, Jake said. They're moving into an intercept formation, Linda reported. 6 ships are breaking orbit to meet us. They're powering weapons. Excellent, Jake said. His voice was completely calm. They're making it easy for us. Ryan, what's our status? All systems optimal. Weapons ready. Just waiting for your word. Jake watched the tactical display. The 6 Krell ships were accelerating toward them, moving into what they probably thought was an intimidating formation. They had no idea what was about to happen. Behind them, the rest of the Krell fleet remained in orbit, probably thinking this would be over quickly. Captain, Kesidral said quietly, you should know that what you're about to do will change everything. The galaxy will see humanity differently after this. I know, Jake said. That's the point. We've been patient long enough. Time to show them who we really are. The 6 Krell ships were close now, close enough that they appeared on the main view screen. They were ugly vessels built for function rather than beauty. Scarred from countless battles, covered in mismatched armor plates from different victims. Pirates and raiders grown bold from years of attacking species that couldn't or wouldn't fight back effectively. They had no idea they were about to become an example. Distance to weapons range? Jake asked. 30 seconds, Linda said. Time until they can fire on us? They're already in range. They're holding fire, probably waiting to see if we'll surrender or run. Jake smiled, but it was the smile of a predator about to strike. Let's not keep them waiting. All ships execute Protocol Hellfire. Fire at will. What happened next would be replayed and analyzed in military academies across the galaxy for generations. The Horizon's Edge, which had appeared to be a single civilian vessel, suddenly revealed its true nature. Weapon ports opened across its hull. The diplomatic ship had more firepower than most military cruisers. Railguns fired, sending projectiles downrange at incredible speeds. The silence on the bridge of the Horizon's Edge was complete. The alien observers stood frozen, staring at the tactical displays that showed nothing but debris where 32 Krell ships had been minutes before. Admiral Kesidral's hands were shaking slightly, something he hadn't experienced since his first combat mission decades ago. Jake Morrison stood at the center of the bridge, his expression unchanged. He might have been reviewing a routine supply report rather than the complete destruction of an enemy fleet. Linda, give me a status report on the colony. Linda's fingers moved across her console. Scanning now. Multiple settlements on the surface. Heavy damage to infrastructure. I'm picking up life signs, but they're concentrated in what look like holding areas. The Krell have been gathering survivors. How many? Jake asked quietly. Approximately 12,000. Based on the colony's original population of 40,000, that means they killed or lost about 28,000 people. The bridge was silent again. Ryan Phillips closed his eyes briefly, his jaw tight. Linda's hands clenched into fists. Jake's expression didn't change, but something cold and dangerous flickered in his eyes. Admiral Kessitral found his voice. Captain Morrison, I have witnessed many battles, but what I just saw wasn't a battle. It was an execution. Your forces didn't just defeat the Krell. You eliminated them with such efficiency that they barely had time to understand what was happening. Yes, Jake said simply. This level of military capability, this technology, this tactical precision, you've been holding this back for 15 years while letting everyone think you were weak. Yes. Kessitral moved closer to Jake, his voice low. Do you understand what this means? You've just shown the galaxy that humanity has been lying from the moment you joined the Council. No one will trust you now. Jake turned to face the Admiral directly. No one trusted us before. They tolerated us, dismissed us, thought we were harmless and slightly stupid. Now they'll know we're not harmless. That's better than being patted on the head like children. They'll fear you, Kessitral said. Good, Jake replied. Fear keeps people honest. One of the other observers, a Thorian named Paulvin, spoke up. But Captain, fear also creates enemies. The major powers will see you as a threat now. They'll form alliances against you. Jake walked to the view screen, looking down at the planet below. They can try. But now they know that if they attack us, we won't ask for council investigations. We won't form committees. We'll respond exactly like we responded to the Krell. Immediately, decisively, and with overwhelming force. He turned back to the observers. I want you all to understand something. Humanity didn't reveal itself today because we were forced to. We revealed ourselves because we were ready. We have the military strength to defend our interests. We have the technology to counter most known threats. We have the industrial capacity to build more ships faster than anyone realizes. And most importantly, we have the will to use all of it without hesitation. Ryan stepped forward, pulling up new displays. The Krell had bases in 17 systems, supply depots, hidden shipyards, raiding stations. We've known about all of them for 6 years. While the Council was debating about how to handle the Krell problem, we were mapping their entire operation. And now? Kessitral asked, though he suspected he knew the answer. Now we're eliminating them, Jake said. Every base, every depot, every ship. The Krell organization will cease to exist within the next 72 hours. Other human task forces are already en route to their locations. You're going to wipe them out completely, Paulvin said, his voice showing his horror. An entire species. No, Linda corrected. We're eliminating a criminal organization. The Krell as a species will survive, but the Krell raiders, the ones who have been terrorizing the frontier for decades, killing civilians, taking slaves, destroying colonies, they're done. Jake touched a control. All ships prepare for planetary operations. I want combat teams on the ground within 30 minutes. Locate all surviving colonists and extract them. Rules of engagement remain the same. Any Krell on the surface are considered hostile. No warnings. No negotiations. The bridge crew moved with smooth efficiency, implementing Jake's orders. Within minutes, transport ships were launching from the carriers, each one carrying teams of human soldiers. The alien observers watched as the tactical displays showed dozens of dropships entering the planet's atmosphere. Admiral Kessitral noted something else. Captain, those aren't just transport ships, those are assault dropships. Military grade, heavily armed and armored. How long have you had those? About 12 years, Jake said. We started developing them after the third time a colony requested help from the Council and received nothing but sympathy and committees. The first dropship reached the surface, touching down near the largest concentration of life signs. Through the ship's cameras, fed to the horizon's edge's bridge, they could see a makeshift prison camp. 12,000 human colonists were being held in crude cages guarded by about 200 Krell raiders. The Krell saw the dropship land. They raised their weapons, probably expecting to capture or kill whoever emerged. Instead, the dropship's assault ramps dropped, and 40 human soldiers in powered combat armor emerged. What happened next was over in less than 3 minutes. The human soldiers moved with the same cold efficiency as the fleet had shown in space. They didn't call for surrender. They didn't offer terms. They simply eliminated every armed Krell in the camp with precise, controlled fire. One Krell tried to use a colonist as a hostage, holding a weapon to a young woman's head and shouting demands. A human sniper, positioned on the dropship's upper deck, put a single round through the Krell's head from 300 meters away. The shot was so precise that it didn't harm the hostage. Admiral Kestrel had fought in many wars. He had led elite military units. But he had never seen soldiers move with this level of precision and control. Your ground forces are as advanced as your fleet. We don't do anything halfway, Ryan said. If we're going to have a military, it's going to be the best military we can build. Another observer, a small being from a species called the Venri, spoke nervously. But the cost, the resources needed to build all of this. How did you hide the economic impact? Linda smiled slightly. We didn't hide it. We just didn't explain it. When we reported our industrial output to the Council, every number was accurate. We built exactly as many ships and weapons as we reported. We just didn't mention that our industrial capacity was 5 times larger than anyone realized. Or that we had mining operations and systems no one was watching. More deception, Kestrel said. More careful management of information. Helen Price's voice came through the ship's communication system. She had been monitoring from her quarters. The Council never asked how many factories we built, never asked about our mining operations in unclaimed systems, never investigated our economic reports closely. You all assumed we were struggling to keep up with basic development. We let you assume that. On the planet's surface, more dropships were landing. The rescue operation was proceeding with military precision. Colonists were being extracted, given medical treatment, and transported to the safety of the orbital carriers. The human soldiers moved through the destroyed settlements, searching for survivors and eliminating any Krell they found. Jake watched it all with the same cold expression. Ryan, status on the other Krell locations? Task Force Baker reports complete success at the Krell shipyard in the Terminus system. 43 enemy vessels destroyed. No survivors. Task Force Charlie is engaging Krell forces at their supply depot in the Outer Rim. Early reports indicate the Krell are attempting to flee. Our forces are not allowing it. The reports continued throughout the next hour. Human task forces, positioned and ready for weeks, were simultaneously hitting every known Krell location. The raiders who had terrorized the frontier for decades were being systematically destroyed. Their ships were burning. Their bases were rubble. Their raiders were dead. Admiral Kestrel pulled Jake aside. Captain, I need to ask you something, and I need you to answer honestly. Go ahead, Jake said. The Krell are raiders, pirates, criminals. But they're also just the beginning, aren't they? This operation, this level of preparation and coordination, you didn't build all of this just to deal with pirates. Who is this really meant for? Jake was quiet for a moment, considering his answer. We built this capability to deal with any threat to human interests. Pirates, aggressive empires, even the Council itself if necessary. You're preparing for war with the major powers, Kestrel said. We're preparing to ensure that war never happens, Jake corrected. Because now everyone knows that attacking humanity means mutual destruction. We're not strong enough to conquer the galaxy, but we're strong enough that no one can conquer us without paying a price they won't accept. Polvin, who had been listening, spoke up. But that's the same logic that led to the ancient wars. Arms races. Mutual fear. It always ends badly. Only if someone is stupid enough to start the war, Linda said. We're hoping everyone will be smart enough not to. The ground operations continued. Every surviving colonist was located and rescued. The number was heartbreaking. Of the 40,000 people who had lived on New Haven, Only 11,800. 3 days after the destruction of the Krell raiders, the Horizon's Edge returned to Harmony Peak. But it didn't come alone. Behind it traveled 3 full carrier groups, making no effort to hide their military nature. The massive warships moved through space with deliberate purpose, their presence a statement that could not be ignored. Admiral Kessistral stood on the bridge beside Jake Morrison as they approached the station. The Velkari admiral had been silent for much of the return journey, watching the human crew work, observing their efficiency, trying to understand what he had witnessed. Now, as the station grew larger on the view screen, he finally spoke. "They're going to demand answers," Kestral said. "The Council will want to put you on trial. They'll claim you violated galactic law, acted without authorization, committed genocide." "Let them try," Jake said calmly. "We broke no laws. We defended our colony against raiders. We eliminated a threat to our people. Every action we took was legally justified under Council charter." "You know it's not that simple. The Council will see this as a challenge to their authority." Jake turned to look at the Admiral. "It is a challenge to their authority. The Council's authority is based on the idea that you maintain peace and order. But you don't. You maintain peace among the powerful and let the weak suffer. We're done accepting that arrangement." The docking procedures took longer than usual. The station's security forces were on high alert, unsure how to handle the arrival of what was clearly a military fleet. Eventually, they assigned docking spaces to the human ships, though they positioned them in a section usually reserved for quarantined vessels. Jake noticed and smiled slightly. "They're afraid of us now. Good." Helen Price was waiting at the docking bay when Jake and the other observers disembarked. Her expression was neutral, but her eyes showed satisfaction. "The Council has called an emergency session. They want you to explain your actions immediately." "I'm sure they do," Jake said. "Give me 2 hours. I want to visit the surface settlement on New Haven first. I want to see what the Krell did with my own eyes." Admiral Kessitral spoke up. "Captain Morrison, I would like to accompany you to this session. If you'll permit it, I want to speak on behalf of what I witnessed." Jake studied him for a moment. "You'll tell them the truth?" "I'll tell them exactly what I saw," Kessitral confirmed. "They may not like it, but they need to hear it." 2 hours later, Jake Morrison stood before the full Galactic Council. The chamber was more crowded than he had ever seen it. Every species had sent representatives. The gallery was filled with observers from dozens of worlds. News of what happened at New Haven had spread across the galaxy, and everyone wanted to hear humanity's explanation. Speaker Varthun's skin was dark purple, indicating his agitation. "Captain Morrison, you stand before this council accused of numerous violations. You launched military operations without council approval. You destroyed an entire organization without attempting diplomatic solutions. You concealed your military capabilities in violation of registration laws. How do you answer these charges?" Jake stood at the center platform, calm and composed. "I answer that every charge is false. We launched military operations to defend a human colony under attack. Council Charter clearly states that member species have the right to self-defense. We don't need approval to protect our own people." "You destroyed every Krell ship and base," another delegate called out. "That's not defense, that's extermination." "The Krell attacked a civilian colony and killed nearly 30,000 people," Jake responded. "They did so deliberately, targeting families and children. They had no military objective. They were terrorists and criminals. We eliminated them to ensure they could never do it again to anyone. I notice that none of you are mourning their loss." Several delegates shifted uncomfortably. The truth was that many species had suffered from Krell raids over the years, and secretly they were relieved the raiders were gone. A Xinthian representative stood. "What about your military deception? You hid your true capabilities from the Council." Helen Price stepped forward. "We concealed nothing that was required to be revealed. The Council registration laws require us to report defensive capabilities. We did so accurately. They require us to report ship numbers. We did so accurately. The law does not require us to explain our technology or reveal our strategic capabilities. We simply chose not to volunteer information that wasn't requested." "Semantics," Varthun said angrily. "Law," Helen corrected. "The same law you wrote. If there are gaps in the registration requirements, that's not our fault. Admiral Kessetral rose from his seat. Speaker, I request permission to address the council. Varthun looked surprised but nodded. The Admiral may speak. Kessetral moved to the center platform, standing beside Jake. I witnessed the human military response to the Krell attack. I saw everything they did, and I can tell you that while their methods were harsh, they were not unjustified. The Krell had committed atrocities. They had killed thousands of civilians. They deserved no mercy. But the scale of the response, Polvin said, they destroyed everything. Left nothing. Yes, Kessetral agreed. And that's what disturbs me most. Not that they did it, but how easily they did it. The humans didn't struggle. They didn't take casualties. They eliminated a fleet of 32 ships in 17 minutes without losing a single vessel. That level of military superiority, hidden for 15 years, represents a fundamental shift in galactic power. The chamber erupted in conversation. Delegates were talking among themselves, their voices rising in concern and debate. Varthun called for order, his forearms gesturing forcefully. Jake waited for the noise to die down before speaking again. The Admiral is correct. Humanity has military capabilities that exceed what we've shown. We've had them for years. And yes, we concealed them deliberately. We did so because we learned something important during our history. He looked around. The chamber, meeting the eyes of delegates from every major power. We learned that the weak are always victims. We watched as smaller species in this council were bullied by larger ones. We saw colonies destroyed while the council debated. We heard promises of protection that never materialized. And we decided we would never be in that position. So you built weapons, a delegate said. You prepared for war. We prepared to ensure war would never come to us, Jake corrected. There's a difference. We don't want to conquer anyone. We don't want territory or resources that belong to others. We want to be left alone to grow and develop in peace. But we also want everyone to know that attacking us is not an option. Helen stepped forward again. Let me be very clear about humanity's position. We are not leaving the council. We value the trade relationships and diplomatic connections we've made. We want to continue cooperating with other species on scientific and cultural projects. But we will no longer accept being treated as junior members who should be grateful for whatever scraps of respect you choose to give us. She pulled up a holographic display showing the human military fleet. This is our actual military capability. 12 carrier groups, 300 combat vessels of various classes, thousands of support ships, advanced weapons technology, autonomous combat systems. We're showing you this now because we want you to understand the reality of the situation. The display changed, showing human colonies across dozens of systems. This is our territory, 37 colony worlds, 18 mining operations, 7 research stations. All of them are now under the protection of the Earth Defense Force. Any attack on any human installation will be met with immediate and overwhelming military response. No warnings, no negotiations, just response. Varthun's skin had gone almost black with agitation. You're threatening the council. No, Jake said firmly. We're making our position clear. We threaten no one who doesn't threaten us first. But we will not tolerate attacks on our people. We will not wait for council approval to defend ourselves. And we will not limit our response to what you consider proportional. Admiral Kessetral spoke again. Speaker, if I may offer a perspective. The humans have actually done the council a service. They eliminated the Krell Raiders, a problem we've been debating for decades. They did it quickly and completely. Yes, their methods were brutal, but they were effective, and now the frontier is safer than it's been in years. A small delegate from a species that had lost colonies to the Krell stood up. I want to thank humanity. The Krell killed my people for years. We asked for help. We begged for protection. The council gave us sympathy and committees. The humans gave us action. I support their position. Other small species began to speak up, expressing similar sentiments. The Krell had terrorized the frontier for so long that many species were genuinely grateful they were gone, regardless of how it happened. But the major powers were less pleased. The Velkari, Zintian, and several others saw humanity's revelation as a threat to the existing power structure. They began calling for sanctions, for restrictions on human military development, for formal investigations into human activities. Jake let them argue for several minutes before speaking again. You can investigate all you want. You can pass whatever resolutions make you feel better. But understand this. Humanity will not submit to limitations that don't apply to everyone, if you want to restrict military development. 6 months had passed since the Krell incident and the emergency council session that followed. The galaxy had changed in that time, though perhaps not in the ways many expected. News of humanity's military capabilities had spread to every corner of known space, carried by traders, diplomats, and the kind of rumors that always follow significant events. Jake Morrison stood in his office aboard Harmony Peak, looking out at the docking bays where ships from across the galaxy came and went. The human diplomatic section had been expanded significantly. What was once a small cluster of offices in a back corridor was now an entire wing of the station, reflecting humanity's new status as a recognized major power. There was a chime at his door. "Come in," he said. Helen Price entered, carrying a data tablet and looking slightly amused. "You need to see the latest reports from Earth Command. They're quite interesting." Jake took the tablet and scrolled through the information. His eyebrows rose slightly. 14 trade agreements in the last month? From species that wouldn't even meet with us 6 months ago. Fear is a wonderful motivator, Helen said, settling into a chair. Or respect, depending on how you want to frame it. Either way, suddenly everyone wants to be humanity's friend. Jake continued reading. The Thorian Collective is proposing a mutual defense pact. The Velkari want to establish joint research facilities. Even some of the smaller species are asking if we'd be willing to provide security for their frontier colonies. We've become very popular, Helen agreed, though I suspect it's less about affection and more about not wanting to be on our bad side. And the Zintian? Jake asked, knowing they had been the most vocal opponents of humanity's actions. Helen's smile faded slightly. They've gone quiet. Very quiet. Our intelligence suggests they've increased military spending by 30% and recalled several of their expansion fleets from the frontier. They're fortifying their core systems. They think we're going to attack them. They think we might, and they're not willing to take the chance of being unprepared. Jake set down the tablet and returned to looking out the window. This isn't exactly what we wanted. We hoped for respect, not paranoia. The two often go together, Helen said. The strong are always feared, at least initially. Give it time. Once people realize we're not planning to conquer anyone, they'll relax. A soft alert sounded. Linda Carter's voice came through the communication system. Captain Admiral Kessitral is here to see you. He says it's important. Send him in, Jake replied. The Velkari Admiral entered a moment later, looking more relaxed than he had during their first meetings. He had become something of an unofficial liaison between humanity and the other major powers, a role he seemed to have accepted willingly. Admiral, Jake greeted him. What brings you by? Kessitral settled into a chair, his forearms folding in a gesture that indicated serious conversation among his people. I wanted to give you some information that isn't in the official reports. The Council is forming a new security force, specifically to deal with threats like the Krell. Pirate organizations, raiders, criminal syndicates that operate across multiple systems. Let me guess, Helen said. They want humanity to lead it. Some do, Kestrel confirmed. Others are terrified of giving you that much authority. The compromise they're considering is a joint force with command rotating among the major powers. Jake thought about this. And they want to know if we'd participate? More than that. They want to know if you'd contribute forces. Your combat drones, specifically. They were very impressed by their effectiveness. I bet they were, Jake said dryly. Let me ask you something, Admiral. 6 months ago, the Council wouldn't even discuss taking military action against the Krell. Now they want to form a security force. What changed? Kessitral was quiet for a moment. You changed things. You showed that problems the Council had been debating for decades could be solved in days if someone had the will to act. You made us look weak and ineffective. Now the Council wants to prove they can be decisive too. So this is about saving face, Helen said. Partly, but it's also genuine. Many species did appreciate what you did, They saw that someone was finally willing to protect the weak instead of just talking about it. They want that to continue, but they want it to be a council action rather than a human action. Jake moved to his desk and pulled up a star chart, showing the locations of human colonies and the territories of other major powers. If we contribute to this security force, what restrictions would we face? That's still being debated. Some want strict rules of engagement. Others want flexibility to deal with threats as they arise. What do you want? Jake asked, looking at the Admiral directly. Kessetral met his gaze. I want what I've always wanted. A galaxy where the weak are protected and the strong act responsibly. I think you can help achieve that. But I also want safeguards to ensure that power isn't abused. Fair enough, Jake said. Tell the Council we'll consider participating. But we have conditions. First, rules of engagement must allow for decisive action. No committees deciding whether to respond while people are dying. Second, if we contribute forces, we maintain command of those forces. We're not handing our drones over to someone else's control. Third, this security force operates under clear authority. No political interference once an operation begins. Kessetral nodded slowly. Those are reasonable conditions. Some won't like them, but I think they're reasonable. I'll convey them to the Council leadership. After the Admiral left, Helen turned to Jake. You're actually considering this. I thought you wanted to keep our military independent. I do, Jake said. But I also don't want to be the galaxy's police force. If we can get the Council to actually do its job, to protect the species that can't protect themselves, that's better than us doing it alone. We'll have allies instead of subjects. And if the Council tries to restrict us or control how we operate, Jake's expression hardened. Then we withdraw and continue doing what we've always done, protecting our own interests and helping those who ask for it. The Council's involvement is nice to have, not necessary to have. The months continued to pass. The proposed security force slowly took shape, though as Jake had predicted, the debates about its structure and authority were long and contentious. Meanwhile, humanity continued to grow and expand. New colonies were established. Trade networks expanded. The human industrial base, no longer hidden, ramped up production openly. Ryan Phillips was overseeing the construction of 3 new carriers when Jake came to inspect the shipyard. They're beautiful, Ryan said, looking at the partially completed ships floating in zero gravity. The new class has 20% more firepower and twice the drone capacity of the old design. Are we building too fast? Jake asked. Some council members are expressing concern about the rate of our military expansion. Ryan shrugged. We're building at the same rate we always have. We're just not hiding it anymore. And honestly, if it makes them nervous, maybe that's not a bad thing. Nervous neighbors tend to be polite neighbors. Linda Carter joined them, having just arrived from a patrol mission near the frontier. The new sensor network is operational. We can...